Did you know that something as small as a handful of traffic tickets could now block your path to becoming a US citizen? That's not a rumor. It's the reality under new rules that have transformed the US citizenship application process. For thousands of Jamaicans and Caribbean nationals in America, this change is not just paperwork. It could decide whether you ever hold that passport, that right to vote, and that permanent sense of belonging. And this isn't about big crimes. It's about a new test of what the US government calls good moral character. And under this rule, even lawful behavior, things you thought didn't matter, could suddenly stand in your way. So, what exactly has changed? Why is it so serious? And what does every Caribbean immigrant with a green card need to know before applying for citizenship? Stay with us, because what you are about to hear may surprise you. From checklist to judgment call. For decades, the process was simple. US Citizenship and Immigration Services, USCIS, used a checklist to decide if you were of good moral character. If you weren't a murderer, a drug trafficker, or a repeat drunk driver, you passed that test. It was clear, it was predictable, and it gave green card holders confidence. But the Trump administration changed that. In August 2025, USCIS issued new guidelines that ripped up the old checklist. Now, instead of proving you haven't done bad things, you must prove that you are a good person in the eyes of the officer reviewing your file. They call it a holistic review, but in reality, it's a judgment call, one that gives officers enormous power to say yes or no. The burden shifts. Here's where it gets tougher. Before, a clean slate was enough. If you worked hard, stayed out of trouble, and paid your taxes, you were fine. Now, that same record might not pass. Why? USCIS expects you to affirmatively show positive contributions, volunteering, community involvement, caregiving, education, and a stable work history. This means someone who has worked 2 jobs for years to support their family, too exhausted to volunteer, might suddenly look blank instead of good. That quiet, law-abiding life no longer guarantees citizenship. And for Caribbean immigrants, many of whom juggle multiple jobs, this is a frightening new hurdle. The expanded universe of scrutiny. Let's break down the new levels of scrutiny. Tier 1, serious crimes like murder remain permanent bars. That hasn't changed. Tier 2, conditional bars such as driving under the influence or drug offenses now demand evidence of rehabilitation. It's not enough to simply wait out the years. You must prove you have changed. Tier 3, the shocker. Lawful acts that look unfavorable can now be used against you. This includes reckless or habitual traffic infractions. In plain language, if you have been ticketed too many times, an officer can say you lack good moral character and deny your application. Think about that. A father driving to 2 jobs, rushing because buses don't run late, could rack up speeding tickets, and those tickets, while minor, could cost him the chance to become a US citizen. The power of discretion. This change puts enormous power in the hands of individual officers. They are told to judge if you live up to the standards of the average citizen. But who is the average citizen? A middle-class homeowner in Ohio, a single mother in Brooklyn, a retiree in Florida. The rule never says. That vagueness opens the door to bias. What one officer sees as minor, another may view as proof of poor character. And for Caribbean immigrants, especially Black immigrants, who already face higher rates of traffic stops and police interactions, the danger of unfair treatment multiplies. Your fate may not rest only on your history, but on how one officer interprets your life. Even your accent, your neighborhood, or your online posts could sway their judgment. social media, and public persona. Yes, your online presence may be under the microscope too. Officers are not only encouraged to look at official records, but also at your behavior and adherence to societal norms. That could include social media. What happens if you share posts critical of US policies or debate politics online? One officer might see it as free speech, another might call it anti-American. The result? Your dream of citizenship could be crushed by how someone interprets a Facebook post. How to survive, building a portfolio of virtue. So how do you navigate this new reality? By being strategic, by building what experts call a portfolio of virtue. This means collecting proof long before you file. Community involvement, letters from churches, schools, and volunteer groups. Financial responsibility, tax records, proof of on-time payments, and no debts. Stable employment. Letters from employers praising your work ethic. Character references. Pastors, community leaders, neighbors, and even landlords. And don't hide your mistakes. If you have tickets or past issues, disclose them, explain them, and show rehabilitation. Caribbean realities. For Caribbean applicants, cultural differences matter. Our community ties, like partner saving systems, active church life, or support for family back home, might not be recognized unless explained. That's why it's critical to include letters from community leaders who can put those contributions in context. 4 bonus facts. Here are 4 facts you may not know. Fact 1. Officers can now look beyond the last 3 to 5 years into your entire history. Mistakes from a decade ago can resurface. Fact 2. Tax troubles are no longer just financial matters. They are moral. Late payments could sink your case. Fact 3. Even civil disputes like unpaid child support may count against you. Fact 4. Legal groups argue this rule may violate due process, and lawsuits are already being prepared. The path to US citizenship has always been long, but now it's also uncertain. For Caribbean nationals and others, the bar has been raised, and the risks are greater than ever. But knowledge is power. Stay informed, protect your future, and subscribe to this channel, Impacting Jamaica, for more vital updates that affect Jamaicans, other Caribbean nationals, and families everywhere.